looking at the subject, this thing called love. And we are looking at who we are supposed to love, how we are supposed to love them. And we started looking at the love chapter last evening, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Everyone knows it as a love chapter because we want to understand this thing called love. And love is what love does. Love, the way to explain love is by what it does, the characteristics. That's how you know if you are loving or you're being loved. And so we started looking at it last evening, and Joshua started reading. And I don't know if Joshua has that. If you're in position to read it again, Joshua, we're going to start one time and we're going to get into it. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And if we could just start to. Joshua, you hearing me? I'm not sure if you're hearing me or not.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, yeah, just read it for me, please. We're going to take it slowly.
All right, so we starting over from the beginning, or we
From the beginning. From the beginning.
Okay. All right. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing.
And I want us to think about that. I really want us to think about that. You could have all the things that people go after. You could have the skills and even the gifts that we were just talking about. You could have all that. But if love is missing, then you're nothing. Next verse.
And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing.
Right.
Love suffers long and is kind.
Right. Stop there. That's where we stopped last night. And I want us to not just do the whole thing, but we're gonna do it in pieces. Love suffers long, or another version says love is patient. Love is patient. And we talked about patience last night, to tolerate delays, to restrain yourself even under provocation, to have self-control or forbearance, as opposed to wanting to do what you want when you want, to be able to calm yourself. And we talked about, the various scriptures that talked about patience, what patience is. And so tonight, I want us to look at two stories in the Bible. We've done it before, and we're going to do it again. Two stories of love. And one is taken from Genesis chapter 29, verses 15 to 20. Anybody got that to read? Genesis 29, 15 to 20. Joshua, did anybody take those?
Yes, Sister Paulette.
Good night. Was 15, 20, Pastor?
Yeah, 15 to 30.
Okay. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing?
So before you continue, let's give a little backdrop who Laban is and who Jacob is. Jacob is the son of Isaac. Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob deceived his brother Esau out of his birthright. Okay, we don't have time to get into the story. He pretended to be his brother, and he received a blessing from his father that his brother should have received. And because of that, his brother was really angry with him, wanted to kill him. So he had to run away. He and his mother set this up. And so he had to run away. And he ended up by his uncle. Laban is his uncle. So he's by Laban now. All right, so here we go. So let's go again.
Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be?
So he's working for him. And he said, listen, I mean, I'm an honest man. I know you're my nephew, but you can't, I can't have you working here and not pay you. So what should I pay you? Go ahead, next verse.
Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel.
Leah and Rachel, right.
Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance.
All right, well, it means something was wrong with her eye. She had cocky eye, as you would say in Trinidad. All right, that's Leah, but Rachel was beautiful.
Beautiful of form and appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter.
All right, stop there, fellas, men in the chat. Fellas, 7 years? 7 years? You would tell a man, well, I mean, if it were you, I don't know how many men in the chat tonight, I don't know, because I can't see. But wouldn't you have said, well, you know, let me serve you a year, let me do work for you free for a year or 2 years and get 7 years, boy? Was it that he thought that she was worth 7 years? What you all think? In fact, ladies, you can answer too. What you all think? 7 whole years. That's 84 months. No, everybody find that was okay, that was cool, that was normal. Woman was what? Okay, I'm switching here to the chat to make sure. Somebody said something and it's gone now. Okay, let me switch back. Okay, anybody? Anyone? First lady?
Well, Dr. Richards, my hand is up and I don't know if anybody's seen it, but
okay.
I was wondering.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, family.
Yeah, and that's
Sorry.
what they said, Dr. Richards, Elder Sherry. And then in the chat, someone says woman was, okay. I'm not too sure what they were going to say. I think that I'm saying 2 different things there. I think the grammar not coming across properly. So we have Elder Sherry's hand is up and Sister Ursula.
Okay,
Elder Sherry.
go ahead.
Well, I was wondering if it is that she was very young. Maybe, you know, when he looked at her, she wasn't ripe, so to speak, and yet, so he figured in 7 years she'd be ready.
Yeah, but they say she was in love with her, so what, he's a pedophile or something? He was in love with her. So he loved with this little girl if she was a little girl? I don't know. You know, we just speculated here. Yes, it's possible. It is possible. Okay, so maybe she was a little green and she didn't get ripe yet. Okay. Sister Ursula?
Before Sister Ursula, Dr. Richard, the person says, woman was hard to get in those days. And Janet says he probably wanted to be a little more mature. Sister Ursula.
Wait. Woman was hard to get. Well, all the more reason you could call your price. I want her now. If he had said, well, look, 1 year and Laban said, no, you had to work 7 years. Because women are hard, you say, okay, well, you know, I'll go with 7 years. But he is the one calling the shot. But anyway, Sister Ursula.
Good night. I don't believe that's how she was that young. Well, she could be at least in her 20s or something, right? And also that's how I look at the years and them in the Bible. They show it like you had January, February, March. It was like short, I believe, in years. So the 7 years could have been like 4 or 5 years in least for me. Because I've looked up that and I find out how 7 years. Yes, she could work for she for 7 years and she reached 20 something or 30 something years. And she reached her age and died the time you think, but I can't say had a shortage of women that time. Remember they married within family and they're not to say they married this one outside and that one outside. They seek their family a low generation to get married to, like cousins or aunt or something. They keep it in the family generation, family lineage. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ursula. Okay, anybody else before we move on?
And Dr. Richards, Auntie Gail said he wanted to prove his love. And Sister Jones says he wanted to prove to the father that he really loved her. And Auntie Gail says, prove his love by waiting.
Well, I tell you, I mean, the Bible doesn't say, and I know we are speculating, but if it was me, I wasn't waiting 7 years. If it was me and you asked me, what is my wages? I would say, well, give me a daughter to marry now. Or even if I have to wait a year or two. But 7 years, that's a long time. But we're just speculating because the scripture doesn't really tell us why 7 years. All right? So we're moving on. So he says he is going to wait 7 years. Where are we?
Dr. Richards,
Yes.
something just dawned on me based on what you're saying here, and you let me know if I'm going off here, right? One of the things we hear often being said is that as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. Listening now, if I think what Jacob was about 40 and she was around 12 or something like that, Dr. Richards, this is what is happening now in the days that we are living in here now, where we are seeing people talking about the young children now, trying to teach children about intimacy at a young age so that if an older person comes to them, it will not feel like incest anymore. They will accept it.
Yeah, the
So you
unfortunate.
see,
Unfortunately,
it's
that's what
sad.
is
Yeah,
happening.
it's sad, and that's what it's yeah, yeah. It just, so I said I want you to tell me if I was off on that there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's a correlation between the two, but what you mentioned is really sad. It is happening, part of the New World agenda, and in fact, the whole LGBTQ agenda, to indoctrinate children, to get them accustomed to intimacy, get them accustomed to sex and that sort of thing. These are just signs of the times, and it is sad. It is sad, and that's why we have to guard our children and pray for our children. But in those days,
But Dr. Richards, you said that that there may not be a correlation with it, right? But isn't at that age, wasn't it normal at that young age for older men to be with younger? It was accepted that time. It wasn't anything.
Yeah, the children got married in that culture. They got married. Young ladies got married very early. As soon as they started puberty, they would get married. But this is what is happening these days is something different. It's young children. We're talking about toddlers. We're talking about preschoolers and going to primary school, that sort of thing. We're not even talking about the age that these girls were, because even Jacob's mother was a young girl when she got married. All right. Because when Abraham sent for a wife for his son, she was a little girl when she came and when they got married. So in that culture, young ladies, even Mary, the wife of Joseph, mother of Jesus, was a young lady. She could have been 12, 13 years old. So in that culture, young ladies got married. But what is happening now is not young children getting married, it's young children being exposed to things that only adults really should be exposed to in that way. Yeah, we teach our children. We are supposed to teach our children and prepare them, but for the future, not for now, not get them involved in sexual things now while they're young. That is wrong. That is wrong. And that's not the way God designed it to be. Okay? So that's why I said there's no correlation between the two, because that was a norm in their culture for young ladies to get married. But in 2023, they're not talking about marriage, they're talking about exposing children to these things. And,
so then Dr. Richards is not.
And even so, it's not part of our culture. It is not part of our culture. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Richards, I'm sorry. But even so, Dr. Richards, based on what you are saying, we see them now as babies in the way we look at when you hear about children being involved in this so young. We say, oh my goodness, that's a little baby. But back then. Well, I was waiting for you to finish it to tell me back then how they saw it.
No, with children. That's what I'm telling you. Young ladies got married. They got married maybe around the age of 12, 13. I'm saying in 2023, what they're doing to the children are children who are 3, 4, 5 years old. That's a different thing. That's a child. That's a child.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's the difference.
Okay, Dr. Richards, thanks.
Okay, I hope you understand what I'm saying. Because in those days, the culture, they all got married young. In fact, children were marked for marriage even before they were born. If I have a daughter, she'll marry to your son, and they keep it in the family, and they keep the wealth in the family, and there are a number of things. But what is happening now is exposing children to pornography, to sex at a very early age. In those days, they didn't expose children to sex. As a matter of fact, virginity was part of the culture. Remember, they had what they call an honor and shame culture. And you kept your honor by remaining a virgin. So when you were married, you were a virgin. This is not what they're doing in these days. They're taking away children's virginity even now at a young age. And that is wrong. And that's the difference. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. Joshua, where are we?
Yes, Dr. Richards.
Mm-hmm.
We are on.
Oh no, it wasn't
4, right?
oh.
Yes. Love does.
No, wait. No, it wasn't you. Someone was reading. Someone was reading Genesis chapter 29. Sorry.
Oh, Sister Paulette.
Sister Paulette. Hello? Can she unmute?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Go ahead.
And Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love.
Listen, I read that over and over, and I wonder, a few days, you served 7 years, you worked for 7 years, and it seemed like a few days. Boy, I don't know what kind of love that is. No, I don't know what kind of love. But anyway, let's continue.
Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her." And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. And Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. So it came to pass in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me?" And Laban said, "It must not be done so in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve with me still another 7 years." Then Jacob did so and fulfilled her week. So he gave him his daughter Rachel as wife also. And Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a maid. Then Jacob also went in to Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served with Laban still another 7 years.
All right, thank you. So we see deception. The same one who had deceived his brother is now deceived by his uncle. Now remember what Laban had told him when he asked for Rachel? He said, "Better give her to you than to give her to another man." So it wasn't any mistake. He knew what he was planning, because the deal was, I worked 7 years for Rachel. And at the end of the 7 years now, here is Jacob asking for Laban to fulfill his end of the bargain, because the father must give consent. He has to give away the daughter. And he has to fulfill his end of the bargain. Now, again, this is why I am saying, if it was me, I would have asked for 2 years. Because if I had asked for 2 years and he gave me 2 years, even if he deceived me, he would have said, serve another 2 years for my daughter, and I would have just ended up serving 4 years and all. Now it's 14 years he had to serve for this lady because he said 7 years. Huh? Laban didn't tell him 7 years. He said 7 years. And so he had to serve another 7 years. He set the price. Okay? No, I didn't check to see if that was part of the culture that you have to wait 7 years, but I don't think it was. Now, what is interesting as well is that on the day of the wedding, now you notice in those days, they didn't have to have no priest and all kind of thing. You know, the father gave to the bride, gave the bride to him, and he had to go into her. How could he not know? How could he, somebody explain to me, how could he not know that it was not racial? Can anybody tell me that?
Dr. Richards,
If you
yes,
want to
Dr.
speak, your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Richards, I was thinking the veil, right? Because when they get married, I think the bride has to wear the veil covering her face. So I think that he would not have seen her face. And when he laid with her before, I think that the lights would have been off and all of that. So he wouldn't have seen her. And then when they went to get married, she would have had the veil on her face and he would not have realized it was the wrong girl until afterwards. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Anyone else? Nobody wants to hazard a guess? Pastor Nicole, anybody?
Dr. Richards, well, we have some no hands up, but we have some comments in the chat, right? Nigel says in those days that was the maximum years for someone to be a slave. Auntie Gail said he got set up. Janet said he did not expect Laban to disappoint him. Margaret said maybe the room was dark. Joan said it was dark when he entered the room. Ursula said, I believe that. Raquel said, well, it had no lights at that time. So I guess maybe they're talking about flambeau, Raquel. And Ursula said that she agrees with Minister Joshua.
Yeah, but still, I mean, all I mean, let's be serious now. Even if the light was dark, even if the place was dark, will you tell me, well, first of all, are you saying she kept on the veil right through? And secondly, you don't think he would have been able to tell the difference, even in the dark? Which one of you, married here now, wouldn't know that this person in your bed is not the person, is not your husband, is not the person that you wanted to get married to? Which one of us would not know that? But anyway, nonetheless, I digress.
Dr. Richards, we have some comments. Elder Gail said she did not speak. Nigel said he was drunk.
But that wasn't time for speaking anyway, so I understand.
Nigel said he was drunk. Donna said he was drunk. Ursula said he could also be drunk at his wedding. And Laban and Brenda said Laban gathered the men together to celebrate. So Jacob might have been drunk. But Dr. Richards, on a serious note, though, on a very, very serious note, there are people who said that they, slept with people they didn't realize they were sleeping with the wrong person. They thought was, you understand what I'm saying? Unreal thing, like people sleeping with their brother-in-law and didn't know it's the brother-in-law. I think the only way you would know I don't know. Maybe they both were the same size, and as Dr. Joshua was saying, they covered the face.
One was older than one, huh? Remember, one was older than the other one. All right.
I'm waiting to get this answer.
You're waiting for?
I'm waiting to hear the answer to this.
No, there is no answer. We are just speculating. We are just speculating because there's no answer really to say this is it. I am just wondering, because I'm asking the question, how could a man not know? But maybe, as I said, maybe he was drunk. And maybe because he did not expect anything like that to happen, he did not expect to be deceived, because Laban had said to him, I will give you my daughter. I prefer to give her to you than to give her to someone else. So maybe it didn't occur to him. And that's why we have to be sober and vigilant, because sometimes the things that we least expect happens to us. Sometimes we have to understand the enemy that we're fighting. He is cunning, he is crafty, and he knows how to get to us. And here it is, this man who, as it turns out to be the father of the nation, or the nation was named after him, nation of Israel. He was deceived. He was deceived. And it means, it also means that Leah was a part of it too, because she knew maybe she's the one who put him up to it. Maybe she's the one who said, I will never get married, and here's an opportunity to do it. We don't know. As I said, we're just speculating, but the end result was that he ended up sleeping with the wrong woman from his perspective, and having now to make another covenant to go another 7 years. So Laban said, fulfill her week. All right, we would have had to have a week of celebration and whatever they had to do. Fulfill her week, and then you know what? You will get Rachel. Now, according to this here, it seems as though he didn't have to wait another 7 years to get Rachel. Eh? It seems as though he fulfilled the week, and he was given Rachel as a wife based on his covenant, his word that he will work another 7 years. Because it says Jacob, he went into Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban still another 7 years. Okay? But the point is that he said 7 years, and because he was in love. And what we are talking about is love is patient. Sometimes you have to be patient, even if it is 7 years, and in this case, 14 years. He was patient because he loved. He didn't want to rush it. He said, listen, because I love this woman, I am willing to wait to work. And that was his wages. He didn't get any money. He didn't get anything. That was his wages, to wait for the one that he loved. And I want to say to the unmarried as well, we've got to be patient and wait for the one, maybe somebody that you know, that you love, or you know, you may not have met him or her yet, but we've got to be patient. We've got to wait. Love is patient. Love doesn't say, I want it now, today. Love is, I'm not saying love is patience, because patience in itself is not love. Love is patient. So you can be patient without being in love. But if you love, then you must be patient. Let's look at another story quickly. 2 Samuel chapter 13, verses 1 to 18. 2 Samuel 13, 1 to 18. Who has that one?
Yes, Dr. Richard, that shows that one. And it said, after this, Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Amnon was so distressed over his sister Tamar that he became sick, for she was a virgin. And it was improper for Amnon to do anything to her.
Why was it improper for him to do anything to her?
She was a virgin.
Yes, and what does that mean?
She was pure.
Okay, yes, she was pure. But it says it was improper for him to do anything to her. Anybody?
Married.
She must be seeing her monthlies.
It was his sister.
Well, that was his sister, yes. It was his sister. And she was a virgin, and they weren't, it wasn't his wife. He couldn't do anything to her because she was not his wife. She was his sister. All right? So let's continue. We'll develop the story. Let's continue.
But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother.
Yeah, so that was actually his cousin. All right, go ahead.
Now Jonadab was a very crafty man. And he said to him, "Why are you, the king's son, becoming thinner day after day? Will you not tell me?" Amnon said to him, "I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." So Jonadab said to him, "Lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. And when your father comes to see you, say to him, 'Please, let my sister Tamar come and give me food, and prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat from her hand.'" Then Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. And when the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, "Please, let Tamar, my sister, come and make a couple of cakes for me in my sight, that I may eat from her hand." And David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Now go to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him." So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. Then she took flour and kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. And she took the pan and placed them out before him, but he refused to eat. Then Amnon said, "Have everyone go out from me." And they all went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food into the bedroom, that I may eat from your hand." And Tamar took the cakes which she had made, and brought them to Amnon, her brother, in the bedroom. Now, when she had brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, "Come, lie with me, my sister." But she said to him, "No, my brother, please, do not force me, for no such thing should be done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. And where could I take my shame? As for you, you would be like one of the fools in Israel. Now, therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you." However, he would not heed her voice, and being stronger than she, he forced her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he loved her. And Amnon said to her, "Arise, be gone." So she said to him, "No, indeed, this evil of sending me away is worse than the other thing that you did to me." But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who attended to him and said, "Here, put this woman out away from me," and bolted the door behind her. Now, she had on a robe of many colors, for the king's virgin daughters wore such apparel. And his servant put her out and bolted the door behind her.
That's a sad story, isn't it? A really, really sad story. Here is the son of the king. The king, two sons, Amnon and Absalom. Absalom had a sister, so they had different mothers, but same father, David. And Amnon seeing his sister, because it was his, what we call half sister, fell in love with her. And so in his mind, he wanted her. He desired her so much that he became sick. And then his cousin, Jonadab, asked him, "What is going on with you, bro?" And he told him, "Boy, I don't know. Tamar, I can't sleep. I can't eat Tamar. You see my head. I go to sleep thinking about her. I wake up thinking about her." And they said that Jonadab was he was crafty. It's the same kind of word that was used to describe the snake in the garden. he was subtle, he was a smart man then. And he devised a plan right away. He said, go and pretend to be sick and ask for her to come and make something for you to eat. And of course, when she come, you know what to do. And so he pretended to be sick. The king came to see him. That shows how much the king loved his son. The king came to see his son who was sick. And he told the king, he said, listen, ask my sister, your daughter, Tamar, to make some things and come. And because if she makes it for me and feeds me, I know I'll feel better. And I don't know if maybe as we're reading this story now, we are seeing the obvious, but at that time it wasn't obvious. And so David did that. And he sent Tamar to Amnon's house. And Amnon, when Tamar came, you know, she went and she made the bread. Somebody's mic is open. Made the dough, kneaded the dough, made the bread, baked it, you know, etc., and came to serve it. But he still didn't want to eat. And then he sent everybody out again. Maybe because we're in 2023, we could see the plot unfolding, but they didn't see it. So everybody went out, and he well, you know what happened? He asked her to bring the food. And when she came, he held her, and he said, come have sex with me. Well, the version said, come lie with me, but come have sex with me. And she said, no, don't do this. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing. Because one of these, in fact, let's look quickly at Leviticus 20:17. Leviticus 20:17. See if you could find that quickly. Joshua, anybody chose that? Leviticus 20:17.
Dr. Richard didn't give me that, but I can pull it up for you.
All right, put it up for me, please. Sorry about that.
All right, Leviticus 20:17. And it says, if a sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, and sees nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, it is a wicked thing, and cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his guilt.
Right. So the law strictly forbid that. Don't take your father's daughter, your mother's daughter, your sister. Don't do that. It was forbidden. And that's why she said, such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing, because that is what the law said. It was wicked. But he didn't do that. She said, listen, speak to the king, and he will marry us. And even then, they weren't supposed to get married, you know, but maybe in her desperation, she said, listen, speak to the king, and I'm sure he will give his blessing. But don't do this. Don't do this, because again, the culture of the Jews was one of honor and shame. And one of the things that shamed is if you had sexual relations before you were married, even if you were raped, you were shamed. Later on in the story, you see that she went to live after it happened, she went to live with her brother until she died. So she never got married. But it's interesting that no, incest is something that was frowned upon. The law said you could not marry your sister, your brother. The Lord warned them. In fact, they were forbidden to marry your mother, your stepmother, your sister, your granddaughter, your stepsister, your aunt, your daughter-in-law, your sister-in-law, your stepdaughter, your granddaughter. All of these you were forbidden to marry. And so what he was going to do there was an abomination. My word. It was a wrong thing, because the law said that. And his father, who was the king, was the keeper of the law. He had to ensure that the law was upheld by everybody. And so he would have been shaming his father and all, because his father was the king. And so what did he do? He put all that out of his mind, and he raped his sister. He raped his sister. And what is interesting is that right after he raped her, right after he had his way with her, the scripture says, as we just read, he hated her. love turned to hate. The love that he thought he felt, that desire, that eros, that mania, it turned to hate. Which says to me, in fact, let me don't say. What does that say to you? What does that tell you? We only have a few more minutes. What does that tell you? The love that he said he had for her turned to hate. What does that say to you? Anybody? I'm not hearing you, First Lady.
Elder Sherry.
Elder Sherry. Elder Sherry.
So there's a
Yes, Dr. Richards. Well, I'm thinking definitely it was not love. I think he lost it after her. So it got the better of him. And so he did what he wanted to satisfy his own urges. And that is what happened. And once that was satisfied, then it became bitter because he knew what he did was wrong. So he now wants to get her out of his sight.
Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of ladies fall for these things, you know. A man tell her he love you, he want you, and from the time you sleep with him, that is it. That is it.
Yeah, doctors, I have some comments in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So somebody, Joan said she was smelling like Rachel. That's why he didn't know the difference. Right?
Oh, that's from before. That's from before.
Yes.
All
And
right.
Gail said maybe because Laban brought her, he thought she was Leah, Rachel.
Okay, that's the
And
first one,
so,
right?
right. And Nigel said because they were related, Ursula said half sister, Auntie Gail said was his sister, Raquel says was his sister, Auntie Gail said wasn't that incest, rape, sin? Raquel said obsessed with her. Auntie Gail says he never loved her, he lied. Elder Ruth says it was not love but lust. Elder Gail said it was lust he felt. Minister Jiva said that was lust. Nigel said guilty feeling. Michelle said this was not love, it was brazen lust. Auntie Gail says true. Viola says it was not love, it was obsession. Minister Jiva said after he gave in to the flesh, he felt guilty. And then Margaret says, then he saw her as the cause of his sin, so he hated her.
Interesting.
And Janet says the flesh is deceiving.
But you already think that he felt guilty? If he felt guilty, he would have been apologizing and saying he's sorry. And that wasn't guilt. That wasn't guilt at all.
Joshua?
Mm-hmm. Joshua, go ahead.
Dr. Richards, I personally think he did not feel guilty. What I think is that after he was done with her, I feel like it was maybe not what he was expecting, like it was underwhelming, or maybe he just didn't enjoy it like he thought he would. So because of that, he got angry and just kicked her out. As I felt like he wanted her all the time. And then when he finally got her, it was not what he thought it would have been. So he just got angry. And yeah.
And what a thing, because you are destroying somebody's life. You are destroying, and when we think of our own pleasure, our own selfish pleasure, we don't realize what we are doing to other people. Here's a young lady who is a virgin. She is a virgin, she's untouched, she's pure. But he wanted to satisfy his own desires.
Dr. Richards, we have two comments.
Mm-hmm.
Auntie Gail said shame, and Elder Gail says, when lust is satisfied, there is no more desire.
Correctamundo. That is absolutely correct. Once you satisfy that, that is it. The thrill of the chase is over. But look at the difference between the two. One man was willing to wait 7 years and 14 years, and one man wasn't willing to wait at all. In one instance, love was patient. The other instant, there was no patience, so it means there was no love. There was just desire. There was just lust, a desire, and this is the negative kind of lust. A desire to satisfy himself, a desire to get what he wanted. Because here it is, she's begging him and pleading with him, don't do this. This kind of thing should not be done in Israel. And yet, that didn't move him. But anyway, we're going to continue with this story tomorrow, God's willing. We have gone over the time again. My apologies. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for being here. We will talk and see how much we could glean out of this, because we are looking at the fact that love is patient. Love is patient. You cannot be in love. You cannot love and not have patience.